The blue light on Ambassador, Vexara's communication panel blinked red. Another city had fallen. Another million of her people were dead or missing. She closed her large, dark eyes and tried to steady her breathing. The air in the underground bunker tasted of dust and fear. Outside, the ground shook as another Korach bombardment slammed into the capital city. The windows were sealed, but the sounds of destruction still bled through. Buildings collapsing, people screaming, the distant roar of war machines grinding everything under their feet. The Zelani Republic was dying. Vexara opened her eyes and stared at the device in front of her. It was their last hope. The Galactic Council had given her permission to send one emergency broadcast across known space. One single message, a cry into the darkness begging anyone to listen. Her hand trembled as she touched the activation crystal. "This is Ambassador Vexara of the Zelani Republic," she began, forcing her voice to stay calm. "Our world is dying. The Korach Empire has invaded our system and is killing our people. We need immediate humanitarian aid. Over 1 billion refugees remain trapped on Sarah Prime. Our hospitals are gone. Our cities are ash. Please, if anyone can hear me, we are begging for help." She paused, her gaze flicking to the small photo sitting beside the transmitter. It showed her family before the war, 2 children with bright eyes and mischievous smiles. If they were still alive, they were somewhere in the city above, hiding in basements as monsters swept through the streets. Her voice cracked, but she kept speaking. "The Korach take no prisoners. They do not honor the laws of war. They kill for sport. We estimate 10 days before they reach every populated area. After that, there will be no Zelani left to save." She ended the transmission and sat back in silence. The message sped away, faster than light, riding the Council's emergency channels to every corner of known space. She could only wait now. Wait and hope. Earth Defense Command, 12 hours later. Lieutenant Ben Clark was on his 4th cup of coffee when the alert chimed. It was deep in the night shift, the time when officers yawned more than they worked. He rubbed his eyes and opened the incoming transmission. The words on the screen made his stomach drop. He read them once, then again. "Admiral Morrison," he whispered into his comm, "we have a priority message from the Galactic Council. You need to see this." Admiral Kate Morrison arrived 30 minutes later, hair tied back, uniform crisp even at this hour. The command center fell quiet as the message replayed on the big screen. Vexara's desperate face filled the room. Her plea cut through the hum of computers and the scratching of pens. When the recording ended, silence lingered. "How long ago was this sent?" Morrison asked. "About 12 hours, ma'am," Clark replied. "Signal routing shows it bounced through 6 systems before reaching us." Morrison studied the tactical map. Sarah Prime was far from Earth, in a sector humans had never visited. Red markers showed Korach territory, a cancer spreading across the stars. "What do we know about them?" she asked. Major Dan Cooper, the intelligence officer, stepped forward. His voice was grim. "They're a military dictatorship, expansion through conquest. No negotiations, no prisoners. When they take a world, they either kill or enslave the population." "And the Zelani?" "Peaceful herbivores, no standing military. They joined the Council 50 years ago under protected status. They farm, create art, study science. They've never fought a war." Morrison turned back to the screen, to the ambassador's face. There was something in her eyes, not just fear, but the iron grip of a mother refusing to break even while her world burned. "What ships are available?" Morrison asked. "The TCS Valkyrie finished her refit yesterday," Cooper said. "She's combat-ready. 3rd Marine Division is aboard for training drills." Morrison almost smiled. The Valkyrie was no relief ship. She was a dreadnought-class battleship, bristling with weapons powerful enough to level continents. The 3rd Marines weren't doctors or nurses. They were shock troops, trained to fight in the worst hells imaginable. But they were what Earth had. And right now was all the time the Zelani had left. "Send orders to Captain Walsh," Morrison said. "The Valkyrie departs immediately, full combat load." Cooper hesitated. "Ma'am, should we wait for proper relief vessels? Medical ships would be more appropriate." Morrison's gaze turned sharp. "Major, the Council will debate this crisis for another 12 hours, then form a committee, then write a strongly worded letter. Meanwhile, children are being hunted in the streets. The Zelani asked for help. They are going to get help, human help." Her words rang through the command center. Officers straightened in their chairs. They understood. Orders rippled outward, and deep in the docks, the most powerful warship in Earth's fleet roared to life. The Valkyrie en route to Sarah Prime. Captain Ryan Walsh stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back as stars streaked past in lines of blue light. His crew worked with quiet efficiency. They had trained for years, but none had ever faced the Korach. ETA to the Thesaurus system? Walsh asked. 22 hours, sir, his helmsman replied. Walsh nodded. Marines. All units are combat ready. Colonel Sullivan reports morale is high. Good, they would need it. Walsh stared at the tactical display. 47 Korach warships surrounded Sarah Prime like vultures circling dying prey. Their formation wasn't defensive. They weren't protecting anything. They were hunting. For 7 days, the Council's peacekeeping fleet had watched from the edge of the system, waiting for negotiations that would never come. 12 ships, white and gold banners fluttering proudly, but their guns silent. Walsh's jaw tightened. Cowards. Sir, Lieutenant Parker called from Tactical. Council Fleet Commander is requesting communication. Walsh sighed. Put them through. The main screen flickered, revealing an insected admiral with glittering eyes and trembling antennae. His voice was smooth, almost apologetic. I am Admiral Thren of the Council Peacekeeping Fleet. You must be the human vessel sent to assist with refugee relief. Why have you brought a warship? Walsh's lips curled into a humorless smile. Because civilians are dying. Council protocol requires all relief operations wait for a ceasefire. Walsh leaned forward. And how long have you been negotiating this ceasefire? We have submitted 17 requests for dialogue. The Korach have not yet responded, but we remain optimistic. On Walsh's tactical display, another energy blast lit the planet's surface. A city died in fire. Admiral, Walsh interrupted. While you've been sending polite messages, how many Zelani have burned? Thren hesitated, eyes shifting. We do not have precise casualty figures. Walsh cut him off with a single sentence. We didn't come here to watch, we came here to help. He cut the channel. Sarah Prime, planetfall. The first shuttles screamed down through the atmosphere, their armored hulls glowing as they cut through fire and ash. Inside, 30 Marines sat in silence, weapons clutched, armor sealed. Sergeant Carlos Rodriguez checked his squad one last time. Medics ready, heavy weapons ready, everyone knew their jobs. The shuttles hit ground in the ruins of the Zelani capital, a wasteland of craters and shattered towers. Rodriguez's visor lit up with movement, large signatures chasing small ones, hunters and prey. Squad, we've got a hunting party 3 blocks north, mixed contacts, civilians are running. Private Amy Chen adjusted her medical pack. Orders, Sarge. Rodriguez's jaw tightened. He remembered the message, the voice of a mother begging strangers to save her children. Orders, he said, we rescue them. The squad moved out, weapons raised, boots crunching across broken stone. Ahead, the sound of claws scraping pavement echoed through the ruins. Screams followed. Rodriguez keyed his comm. Valkyrie, this is first squad. We have contact. Hostiles engaging civilians, beginning rescue operations. From orbit, Captain Walsh listened as the first shots rang out below. The war for Sarah Prime had begun. The ruined streets of the Zelani capital were silent except for the distant rumble of collapsing towers. Smoke curled between broken arches, thick and oily. The smell of burned flesh carried on the wind. Sergeant Carlos Rodriguez crouched at the corner of a shattered wall, scanning the road ahead through his visor. Heat signatures glowed on his HUD. Large, steady movements. Smaller ones darting frantically. The predators were closing on their prey. He raised a fist. His squad froze behind him, Private Chen with her medkit strapped across her back, Johnson with the heavy repeater cradled in his arms, Lopez and Harris carrying rifles ready for the fight. They were Marines. They were used to the smell of death. But this world wasn't a battlefield. It was a slaughterhouse. Contacts 3 blocks ahead, Rodriguez whispered into comms. Hostile formation pursuing civilians. From orbit, Captain Walsh's voice came back, calm and steady. Copy, Sergeant. Mission priority, rescue civilians. Rules of engagement, protect the innocent. Remove any obstacles. Rodriguez nodded. His pulse slowed, his breathing evened. It wasn't fear he felt, it was purpose. Move out. The encounter. They advanced through rubble, boots crunching glass and stone. The sound of claws grew louder. A Zelani scream cut through the smoke, high-pitched, desperate, abruptly cut short. Rodriguez signaled his squad to spread out. They fanned through the ruins, rifles raised. He saw them first. The Korach were tall 2.5 meters, armored in natural bone-like plating, their limbs thick with muscle. Their jaws bristled with serrated teeth. Each carried a weapon shaped like a hooked blade fused with a rifle, predators born from nightmares. They had cornered a group of Zelani civilians in a collapsed courtyard. Dozens of small, herbivorous aliens huddled together, their wide, dark eyes glistening with terror. The Korach stalked closer, growling low, savoring the hunt. Rodriguez's hand tightened on his rifle. On my mark. One of the Korach lunged forward, claws flashing. The Zelani shrieked. Mark! The Marines opened fire. Rifles spat white-hot bursts. Johnson's repeater thundered, chewing through the air. The courtyard lit with chaos. The Korach roared as armor cracked, blood spraying in dark arcs. They turned to face the new threat, not weak prey, but predators of their own kind. Rodriguez fired a 3-round burst into the nearest hunter's chest. It staggered, then collapsed, clawing the ground. Lopez and Harris dropped 2 more. Johnson's repeater cut another in half mid-charge. The last 2 lunged, fast, furious. One slammed into Harris, claws ripping across his armor. Harris screamed but stayed standing, shoving his rifle under the creature's jaw and firing until the alien's head burst apart. The other hunter barreled toward Chen, who was dragging a wounded Zelani child behind cover. Her sidearm was already drawn. She fired 3 precise shots into its throat before it could reach her. The Korach fell at her feet, twitching. And then silence. The entire fight had lasted 30 seconds. 6 Korach lay dead. The rescue. Rodriguez knelt beside the Zelani. Dozens of them stared up at the Marines, trembling. Their bodies were thin, their hands delicate, their faces a mix of fear and disbelief. You're safe, Rodriguez said gently, lowering his weapon. His voice came through his armor's translator, reshaped into their tongue. We're here to help. A Zelani child whimpered and reached for him. Rodriguez hesitated, then removed his gauntlet and offered his bare hand. The child's small fingers clutched it tight. Chen, Rodriguez called, medical check. She was already moving, scanning wounds, applying bandages from her kit. Human field dressings fused with alien physiology better than expected. Burns cooled, bleeding slowed. The Zelani gasped as color returned to pale faces. Rodriguez keyed his comm. Valkyrie, this is first squad, first contact complete. 6 hostiles neutralized, 12 civilians rescued, medical supplies effective, continuing search and rescue. Walsh's voice came back, steady but proud. Copy that, Sergeant. Outstanding work. Proceed with operations. Orbit. On the Valkyrie's bridge, Captain Walsh watched the tactical feed. His Marines were alive. Civilians were being pulled from death's grip. For the first time in days, Zelani were hearing gunfire that wasn't aimed at them. Captain, Lieutenant Parker reported, the Korach fleet is shifting formation, moving toward our shuttles. Walsh's jaw hardened. All batteries, combat alert. If they want to interfere with a humanitarian mission, they'll pay for it. On his display, the Council fleet still hung back, watching. Safe, useless. Communications, Walsh ordered. Patch me through to Colonel Sullivan. The screen split to show the Marine commander in the deployment bay. Behind him, armored troops loaded gear, checked weapons, boarded transports. Sullivan's expression was calm, voice professional. Captain scans show organized extermination on the surface. Not occupation, hunting sweeps. Civilians don't have long. Rules of engagement? Sullivan asked. Walsh's eyes flicked to the image of the Zelani child clutching Rodriguez's hand, to the smoking ruins below, to the Council fleet still motionless. Colonel, Walsh said coldly, this is a humanitarian mission. Protect the innocent, remove any obstacles to that mission. Sullivan's lips curved into a thin smile. Copy that, Captain, understood. The clinic. Hours later, Sergeant Maria Santos crouched in the ruins of a medical clinic. Her squad had found 23 Zelani civilians, all wounded. Burns, fractures, infections. She moved between them, patching wounds, giving water, whispering comfort in broken Zelani. Private Chen transferred to her squad, checked her scanner. Contact North Street, 12 Korach, moving fast. Johnson set up his heavy weapon. 12 against one squad, not good odds. Santos tightened the strap on her rifle, then smiled. They're not hunting helpless prey anymore. They're fighting Marines. That changes the odds considerably. The Zelani civilians looked up with fear as the sound of claws drew closer. Santos crouched beside a wounded child, stroking its trembling hand. "You're safe," she whispered. "No one's going to hurt you now." Then she stood, rifle ready, as shadows moved at the clinic entrance. The council reacts. High above, on a council observation ship, a diplomatic recorder named Zexelin struggled to describe what he was seeing. Humans conducting battlefield surgery while laying ambushes, rescuing civilians while destroying alien patrols. The categories didn't fit. "Admiral," Zexelin said nervously, "how should I classify these actions?" Admiral Thren stared at the human tactical feed in disbelief. Marines firing from barricades while treating wounds. Corpses of predators beside bandaged children. "Record it as," he hesitated, antenna trembling, "humanitarian relief conducted with military methods." "That is not an official category, sir." "Then create one." The trap. Back at the clinic, Santos and her squad waited. The Korach hunters advanced, confident, snarling as they approached the ruins. They had enjoyed easy prey for days. They expected terror, not resistance. They found an ambush. Johnson's repeater thundered, tearing the first 3 apart. Chen fired controlled bursts, dropping 2 more. Santos darted between cover, firing while checking vitals of the wounded behind her. Bullets cracked, claws slashed, smoke filled the air. The battle raged 12 minutes. When it ended, every Korach lay dead. Santos exhaled hard, her left arm seared by a fresh burn. She ignored it, moving to a Zelani woman with a deep chest wound. "Stay with me," Santos said firmly, pressing a seal over the wound. "You'll make it, I promise." She keyed her comm. "Medical station secure, civilians evacuated, 12 enemy neutralized, requesting resupply of ammo and medical kits." The reply came quickly. "Outstanding work, Sergeant. Relief squad inbound. Are you injured?" Santos looked at her arm, already bloody. "Minor wound, still operational." She didn't stop working. More civilians needed her hands. The antagonist moves. Deep in the ruins of the capital, Korach leader Vento examined the bodies of his hunters. 6 dead in 30 seconds, 12 more wiped out in a clinic. His jaws clenched. Pack leader, one of his subordinates, said nervously, "The prey has found protectors." Vento snarled, kicking a corpse. "No prey has protectors. These new aliens are just another species to hunt. Send word, find these hunters, kill them." 3 hours later, Vento and his entire pack were dead. Cliffhanger. On the Valkyrie's bridge, alarms flared. Lieutenant Parker's voice cut through the noise. "Captain, Korach fleet is moving. Full combat formation. 47 warships breaking orbit. They're coming for us." Walsh straightened, his jaw tight. "Sound battle stations, if they want to stop our humanitarian mission." He stared at the massive red blips closing in. "They'll learn what it costs." The deck shuddered as the first enemy salvos lit up the void. The Valkyrie trembled as the first wave of plasma fire slammed against her shields. Blue light rippled across the hull, energy bleeding into the void. "Shields holding at 92%, Parker reported, voice clipped but steady. "Return fire," Captain Walsh ordered. The Dreadnought's batteries came alive. Railguns spat tungsten slugs at near-relativistic speed. Plasma cannons flashed, tearing into the darkness. The void lit with thunder. On the tactical display, red icons swarmed forward, 47 Korach warships in hunting formation. Predators even in space, they darted and weaved, surrounding their prey. But the Valkyrie was not prey. Her guns spoke with the voice of Earth itself. Council fleet watching. Far behind, the Council's 12 peacekeeping ships sat motionless. Their commanders watched in horror as the humans charged headlong into impossible odds. Admiral Thren gripped the edge of his console. "They're outnumbered 3-1. No species could survive that." Zexelin, the recorder, whispered, "But Admiral, they are surviving." On the feeds, human gunners adjusted fire mid-battle, adapting to the Korech's erratic movements. Each blast was faster, more precise. Every time a Korech ship closed in, the Valkyrie's Marines launched missile salvos that forced them back. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't diplomatic, it was brutal efficiency. Bridge of the Valkyrie. Enemy cruiser down, Parker shouted. Direct hit on their core, she's gone. Walsh didn't smile. One ship destroyed, 46 left. Damage report. Minor hull stress, aft plating scorched, shields at 78. Maintain pressure. Marines on the ground are depending on us. We hold this line. The crew answered in unison. Aye, Captain. The Valkyrie surged forward, her massive engines roaring as if challenging the void itself. Ground, a different battle. Below, in the ruins of the capital, Sergeant Rodriguez's squad had established a defensive zone inside the wreck of an old transport hub. Dozens of Zelani civilians huddled under makeshift shelters. Private Chen worked feverishly on a wounded Zelani elder, sealing a deep plasma burn. The alien's breath rattled, eyes half closed. Chen whispered encouragement in clumsy Zelani phrases. You'll live, stay with me, stay. The elder's trembling hand gripped hers weakly. Rodriguez stood at the shattered entrance, rifle ready. He looked out at the streets, fire and shadows, shapes moving in the smoke. Every sound felt like claws scraping stone. Johnson set up his repeater by the doorway. They're probing us, Sarge, you feel it. Rodriguez nodded grimly. The Korach weren't done. They were circling, testing, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Then we make it hell for them when they try. Alien eyes. Among the rescued civilians was a young Zelani female, Kelthara. Unlike the others, her eyes weren't just fearful, they were sharp, observant. She had helped organize civilians into hiding spots before the humans came. Now she watched the Marines with intense curiosity. Sergeant, she said in broken English, why do you fight like this? Council promised us aid. They said ships would come to take us away, not soldiers. Rodriguez adjusted his grip on his rifle. We're not here to take you away. We're here to make sure the monsters don't hurt you anymore. Kelthara tilted her head. But you risk yourselves, you bleed for us, why? Rodriguez hesitated. The simple answer was duty. The real answer was something deeper, something harder to explain. Finally, he said, because we can. Kelthara's eyes widened. She seemed to turn the phrase over in her mind like tasting a new flavor. Because you can. Fleet battle escalates. In orbit, the Korach swarm pressed harder. Dozens of enemy frigates darted in, firing concentrated plasma beams. The Valkyrie's shields flared, alarms screamed. Forward shields at 40%, Parker shouted. Redirect power from secondary batteries, Walsh snapped. Sir, that'll drop our offensive output. Do it, we're not here to win glory, we're here to protect. The Valkyrie groaned as power surged. Shields brightened, holding against the onslaught. Walsh leaned forward, eyes cold. Target their command ship. Let them know humans bite back. Command ship. A massive Korach dreadnought loomed at the center of the swarm, its bone-plated hull bristling with weapons. The Predator fleet's leader sat in its command chamber, claws tapping with cruel amusement. These new prey fight hard, he snarled. Good, a better hunt. Then his ship shuddered violently as a tungsten slug ripped through its side, tearing entire decks into space. Alarms wailed. The smile faded from his jagged mouth. Ground, the clinic C. At the clinic, Sergeant Santos crouched beside the Zelani child she had saved earlier. The girl clung to her armor, refusing to let go. Santos kept one hand on her rifle, the other gently stroking the child's trembling head. Contact, Chen shouted from her position. Multiple signatures inbound, big group. The Korach were coming in force. Johnson's repeater roared to life as shapes burst from the smoke. Plasma fire streaked through the air. Marines answered with precise bursts, each shot tearing through bone armor. Santos barked orders, shifting her squad to cover angles, moving civilians toward evacuation shuttles. The Zelani clung to them, fear mixing with awe. For the first time, they were seeing hunters bleed. Amid the chaos, Kelthara grabbed a fallen Korach blade rifle. She hefted it awkwardly, but determination lit her eyes. Rodriguez stopped her. That thing's heavier than you are. I must help my people, she insisted. I cannot hide while others die. Rodriguez looked at her, small, frail, terrified, but burning with fire. He remembered being 19, clutching a rifle for the first time. He handed her a human sidearm instead. Start with this, pointed at monsters, not yourself, safety's here. Kelthera nodded, jaw set. For the first time, she wasn't prey. Orbit, the turning point. On the Valkyrie, Parker shouted. Enemy frigates breaking formation. We've got a hole in their flank. Walsh slammed his fist on the console. Punch through, now. Engines roared. The Valkyrie surged forward, tearing through the gap, guns blazing. Explosions lit the void as enemy ships broke apart. The Council fleet watched in disbelief. One human ship charging into a storm and carving a path. Admiral Zexelin whispered, "They're insane." Thren's antenna trembled. "No, they're human." The price, but victory came at cost. On the ground, Harris fell. Plasma fire tore through his chest plate, knocking him back into Rodriguez's arms. Blood bubbled at his lips. "Sarge," Harris rasped, eyes wide. "Tell my girl I kept my promise, tell her." His voice broke, then faded. His body went limp. Rodriguez clenched his jaw, grief a knife twisting in his chest. He laid Harris gently down, then stood, rifle steady. His voice was cold as steel. "Johnson, Chen, kill every last one of them." They did. The Korach patrol fell in minutes, their corpses joining Harris on the blood-soaked ground. The Zelani civilians watched in silence. For the first time, they saw predators broken and protectors mourning one of their own. Kelthera whispered softly, "You bleed for us." Rodriguez didn't answer. He just pulled Harris's tags from his armor, tucking them into a pouch with hands that shook. Cliffhanger. In orbit, the Korach dreadnought fired its main cannon. A blinding lance of plasma cut through the void, slamming into the Valkyrie's flank. Shields shattered. The ship screamed as hull plating tore away. "Direct hit," Parker shouted. "Shields offline, hull breach on decks 8 through 10. Sparks rained across the bridge. Walsh gripped the railing, face grim. "Seal the breaches. Fire back everything we've got." The Valkyrie's guns thundered, but alarms blared louder. Then the helmsman shouted in terror. "Captain, we've got 47 enemy warships, and only one of us. We can't hold forever." Walsh's eyes burned like ice. "Then we don't hold, we break them." The Valkyrie roared into the storm, alone against the swarm. The Valkyrie's hull screamed as another salvo tore across her flank. Alarms blared, flames licked through ruptured conduits. The bridge shook, consoles sparked, and the air reeked of ozone. "Shields offline," Parker shouted. "Hull integrity down to 60%. Walsh gripped the railing, voice steady despite the chaos. "Target their command dreadnought, fire everything." The Valkyrie's cannons thundered, spitting rail slugs and plasma beams into the void. Missiles streaked in bright trails. The human dreadnought lunged forward like a wounded beast, defiant against the swarm. On the display, explosions rippled across the Korach dreadnought. Whole sections blew apart, debris scattering. But the massive Predator ship still burned forward, jaws of plasma opening for another strike. The Council objects. On the Council flagship, Admiral Thren could hardly breathe. He had expected the humans to die quickly, crushed under numbers. Instead, they were cutting through the enemy line, refusing to retreat, refusing to yield. "They're mad," one officer muttered. "No," Zexelin whispered. "They're saving lives." The Admiral stared at the feed of Marines on the surface, pulling civilians from rubble while blasting enemy patrols. He watched the Valkyrie smash through ships 3 times her size. His antenna drooped with shame. "Transmit to the humans," Thren said, his voice trembling. "Tell them they are violating Council humanitarian protocols. Relief ships are not to engage in offensive combat." The message went out. On the Valkyrie, Walsh read it, then laughed bitterly. "Protocols?" he muttered. "Tell them Earth has new protocols." He keyed comms to open broadcast. His words carried across every ship in the system, Council and Korach alike. "This is Captain Walsh of the Terran vessel Valkyrie. On Earth, we believe the most effective relief is to remove the cause of suffering. The Korach are not an opposing army. They are a disease, and we are here to cure it." The bridge fell silent except for the crackle of flames. Parker glanced at him, eyes wide. "Sir, you just declared extermination." Walsh's jaw was stone. "No, I declared medicine." Ground human aid. In the shattered transport hub, Sergeant Rodriguez gathered the civilians for evacuation. Dropships roared overhead, descending through fire. Marines loaded Zelani families aboard, handing out water and food packs. Kelthara stood nearby, watching everything with disbelief. Humans didn't just fight. They organized, they comforted, they carried wounded on their backs. They gave their own rations to hungry children. She turned to Rodriguez. Your people, you heal and fight at the same time. We were told war and mercy cannot live together. Rodriguez checked his weapon, then knelt so his visor met her eyes. They can, because we decided they should. Kelthara blinked rapidly. But you could die for us, why would you? Rodriguez thought of Harris's body, still cooling on the ground. He thought of the Zelani child clutching his hand. He thought of his own little sister back on Earth. Because some things are worth dying for. Kelthara looked at him as though she'd seen the sunrise for the first time. The clinic. Sergeant Santos braced her rifle against a collapsed wall, firing burst after burst. Around her, Zelani civilians cowered, but she moved with calm precision. Her arm was still burned, but she didn't stop treating wounds between volleys. Private Chen called out, "Ammo's running low." "Make every shot count," Santos ordered. More Korach poured in, relentless, snarling, jaws dripping. They crashed against human lines like waves against a cliff, and the Marines stood. "Protect the wounded," Santos shouted. Korach bodies fell one after another, their snarls silenced by gunfire. Yet still they came. Then above the clinic, a thunderous roar split the sky. Shuttles screamed down, disgorging more Marines in full combat gear. Relief squads poured fire into the enemy. The tide broke. Santos exhaled in relief, then collapsed against the wall. Blood dripped from her burn, but her eyes never left the Zelani she had saved. "You're safe," she whispered. "We're here, you'll live." Fleet the edge of collapse. On the Valkyrie, consoles burned. Crew shouted damage reports. Main reactor overheating. Deck 10 breached, casualties heavy. Forward batteries offline. Walsh barked orders through the smoke. Seal Deck 10, reroute power from secondary reactors to spinal gun. "Sir, if we overload it, we'll gut them before they gut us." The ship trembled violently as the spinal gun charged. The bridge glowed with a rising hum. The enemy dreadnought loomed close, its maw of plasma ready to fire again. Walsh raised his hand. Fire. The Valkyrie spat a lance of pure energy, white-hot, tearing through the void. It speared the enemy dreadnought from bow to stern. The massive beast split apart, its burning halves tumbling into the planet's atmosphere. Cheers erupted across the bridge, but they were short-lived. "Captain," Parker screamed, 20 enemy warships still closing, we can't hold." Walsh's eyes narrowed. "Then we hold long enough." Council clash. Admiral Thren sent another message, his voice desperate. "Captain Walsh, you must withdraw. This aggression will doom us all." Walsh cut him off. "You've had 7 days to help, 7 days to stop this slaughter. All you did was watch. We're done watching." Zexelin, the recorder, spoke softly to Thren. "Admiral, perhaps history is being written, and we are standing in the wrong place." On the ground, a shift. Kelthara fired the human sidearm into the ruins, her hands shaking but her aim true. A Korach hunter fell, its blood staining the cracked pavement. She gasped, the weapon trembling in her grip. Rodriguez placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Good shot." Her voice shook. "I killed." "You saved." Kelthara looked at the weapon, then at him. "Is this what it means to be human?" Rodriguez shook his head. "No, it means you chose, that's what it means." Her eyes filled with tears, not of fear, but of something new. Resolve. The escalation. In orbit, sensors screamed. "Captain," Parker shouted. "New contacts emerging from hyperspace, massive fleet signature." Walsh's gut clenched, more Korach. "No," Parker said, staring in disbelief. "It's human, Admiral Morrison and the 7th Fleet." The void lit with blue flashes as 12 more Terran ships emerged, guns armed, banners flying. Each was designated as a medical support vessel, but every hull bristled with weapons. On the lead ship Retribution, Admiral Morrison's voice carried across all channels. Calm, cold, absolute. "Korach Fleet, this is Admiral Morrison of the Terran Defense Force. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system. Any hostile action against the planet will be considered terrorism against refugees under our protection." The Korech fleet commander snarled in response. "Human Admiral, you are outnumbered. You cannot protect the planet." Morrison's reply was soft, but it carried like thunder. "You misunderstand. We are not here to protect the planet from you. We are here to protect you from what happens if you hurt anyone else." The Seventh Fleet did not glide into the Thesaurus system like diplomats. It arrived like a scalpel, sharp, precise, designed to cut out disease. Admiral Kate Morrison stood on the flag bridge of the Retribution, her dark uniform crisp, her hair tied back in a braid streaked with silver. Her eyes never left the tactical display. Red enemy icons swarmed like infection around the blue-green orb of Sarah Prime. "Status of our medical support vessels?" she asked. "Fully armed, Admiral," her operations officer replied. "All wings loaded, reactors hot." Morrison gave a small nod. "Then let's begin treatment." The cure. The Council Fleet Commander, Admiral Thren, opened a channel. His antenna twitched with alarm. "Human Admiral, this level of escalation cannot be sanctioned. We came to provide aid, not provoke war." Morrison turned slowly, meeting his many-eyed gaze on the screen. Her voice was calm, but iron-threaded every word. "Admiral, what you call escalation, we call medicine. The Korach infestation is the disease. Sarah Prime is the patient, and humanity is the cure." Gasps filled the council chamber behind Thren. Diplomats whispered in horror. The word infestation burned like acid through galactic etiquette. Thren sputtered, "You cannot." "I can," Morrison interrupted, "and I will. Step aside, Admiral, or history will remember you as the man who watched children die while humans performed surgery." She cut the channel without waiting for an answer. On the surface, the offensive. Sergeant Rodriguez crouched behind the ruins of a government hall. His squad had been assigned a new mission: eliminate Korach patrol routes near the largest underground shelter. Kelthera stayed close, now armed with a scavenged rifle. Her hands shook, but her eyes were focused. Rodriguez tapped his comm. "Valkyrie, this is Sierra Team, beginning sweep." "Copy, Sierra Team. You are cleared for full engagement," came Walsh's voice, calm as ever. The squad moved. Grenades blasted Korach sentries into dust. Marines pushed forward, clearing alleyways with brutal efficiency. Kelthara flinched at every shot but kept moving, dragging civilians from rubble, tending wounds with shaky hands. She was learning quickly. At one corner, they found a makeshift Korach holding pen, a group of Zelani chained like livestock. The hunters had been feeding on their fear, keeping them alive for sport. Rodriguez's jaw tightened. He raised his rifle. "Not anymore." Gunfire roared, chains snapped. Civilians stumbled free, weeping, clinging to the Marines. Kelthara stared at Rodriguez. "You killed and healed at the same time." Rodriguez loaded another magazine. His eyes were cold. "That's what humans do best." The depot. Major Cooper led a strike force against a Korach supply base. Massive walls bristled with guns, guarded by hunters in heavy armor. Inside, crates of stolen Zelani food and medicine were stacked high. Council observers recorded everything from orbit, antenna quivering. Cooper's voice crackled over comms, initiating requisition operation. Missiles shrieked from human launchers. The base erupted in fire. Marines stormed through breaches, gunning down defenders with surgical precision. Within an hour, the base was ash and smoke. Marines loaded supplies onto evacuation shuttles, handing food to starving Zelani even as embers burned around them. Council officers filed confused reports. Human forces destroyed enemy military infrastructure, while simultaneously distributing humanitarian relief. Category does not exist in Council lexicon. Admiral Thren groaned, antenna drooping. "What do we even call this?" Zexelin, recorder for the Council, spoke quietly. "We call it human." The clinic stand. Sergeant Santos's clinic became legendary across Sarah Prime. The Korach had attacked it 6 times in 2 days. Each time they expected to find helpless medics. Each time they found Marines who fought like wolves while bandaging the wounded. Corporal Davis treated a Zelani child with burned lungs even as shells exploded overhead. He slipped a breathing mask over the child's mouth, whispering, You're safe. Breathe. That's all you need to do. Then he picked up his rifle and fired through the shattered window, dropping a charging Korach. He didn't flinch. He didn't even pause. Next patient, he shouted. The Zelani survivors watched in awe. To them, humans looked like creatures from myth, healers who carried thunder in one hand and mercy in the other. Council paralysis. On the council flagship, diplomats argued in panicked tones. They're destabilizing galactic law. This is not humanitarianism, it's conquest in disguise. No species can combine war and aid, it's unnatural. Zexalin silenced them with a recording. It showed Corporal Davis cradling a Zelani child while exchanging gunfire with a Korach squad. The child's frightened eyes softened into trust. Unnatural, Zexalin asked, or inevitable? The chamber fell silent. The turning point. Admiral Morrison studied the Korach fleet. Reinforcements had arrived, swelling their numbers to more than 60 warships. By all galactic logic, the humans should have been obliterated. But logic had never ruled Earth. Signal all ships, Morrison ordered. Commence Phase 2. Across the 7th Fleet, hatches opened. Dropships launched in swarms, each carrying Marines, medics, engineers. They didn't retreat to safe zones. They landed directly in enemy-controlled cities, carving out safe havens block by block. Every Korach stronghold destroyed became a refugee camp. Every battlefield hospital doubled as a fortress. Every human action screamed the same truth. We are here to fix this permanently. Grokanosh's Ray. On the Korach command ship, war leader Grokanosh slammed his claws into the console. His hunters reported losses, ambushes, humiliation. These humans, he snarled, are not prey, they are poison. His advisor cowered. What shall we do, Hai Feng? Grokanosh bared his teeth. We kill until they break. If they will not yield, we make them bleed with their pets. He ordered massed bombardments on remaining Zelani shelters. Entire blocks of civilians would be vaporized in minutes. The response? On the retribution, Morrison read the intercepted order. Her stomach clenched. They're preparing extermination strikes, Parker reported. Morrison stood straighter, her voice hardened. Then we cure the disease completely. She opened comms to the Korach fleet commander. Her words were broadcast across the system. Korach fleet, this is Admiral Morrison of the Terran Defense Force. You have 6 hours to withdraw. If you continue targeting civilians, you will not survive this day. Grokanosh's laughter boomed across the channel. Human, you are bold but foolish. We are predators, you are prey. Morrison's reply was quiet, almost gentle. No, we are doctors, and you are the infection. She cut the channel. The ruins of Sarah Prime's capital still smoldered when Sergeant Rodriguez and his squad sprinted across the broken streets. The air was thick with smoke, every breath sharp like glass. Above, the red glow of descending fire traced across the sky, Korach warships preparing their extermination strike. The shelter lay beneath the shattered legislative dome. Thousands of Zelani huddled inside, waiting, praying. If the hunters breached, it would be a slaughter beyond imagining. Rodriguez slammed a new magazine into his rifle. His voice was steady, even as sweat ran down his face. Sierra team, we hold the line. No Korach gets through. Not one. Kelthara clutched the rifle he'd given her, hands trembling but her chin lifted high. I'll fight with you. Rodriguez met her gaze. Then stay close. Today you're marine enough. The first wave. The Korach came like a tide. Dozens, then hundreds, hulking shapes in the smoke, eyes gleaming. They didn't fire first. They roared, a predator's chorus meant to terrify prey. Rodriguez's squad didn't flinch. Johnson hefted his heavy weapon, Chen lobbed grenades. The first line of hunters was ripped apart in seconds. Explosions lit the ruins, tearing bodies to pieces. But more surged forward, leaping over their dead, claws and plasma blades flashing. They crashed against the Marines' barricades like a storm against rock. Rodriguez fired point-blank, dropping one, then swung his rifle like a club into another's face. Kelthara screamed as a hunter lunged at her and fired wildly, the plasma bolt burning through its chest. She stood gasping, staring at the smoking corpse at her feet. Rodriguez grabbed her shoulder. Good, keep moving. The Zelani refugee beside her whispered in awe. She fights like a human. Inside the shelter, beneath the dome, thousands of Zelani packed the cavernous hall, trembling as the ground shook with every blast. Children cried, elders prayed. One boy looked up through the cracks of the ceiling and whispered, "Are they coming for us?" His mother pulled him close. "The humans will stop them." The duel. From the shadows of the Korech ranks, a massive figure emerged. Grokanash. His armor was draped in bones, his claws stained with Zelani blood. His voice boomed across the battlefield. "Humans, pretenders, you protect prey that should be ours. Step aside or die with them." Rodriguez spat into the dirt. "Not happening." Grokanash's eyes locked on him. "Then I kill you first." The war leader charged, moving impossibly fast for his size. Marines opened fire, but Grokanash weaved between shots, his claws cutting through barricades like paper. Rodriguez braced, but Grokanash slammed into him, sending him crashing to the ground. His rifle skidded away. The alien loomed, claws raised. Rodriguez grabbed a shard of debris and jammed it into Grokanash's side. The alien roared, swiping hard, knocking him across the rubble. Pain flared through Rodriguez's ribs. "Sergeant," Kelthara screamed. Kelthara's choice. She could run. Every Zelani instinct screamed at her to hide, to curl into the earth, to wait for it to end. But then she saw Rodriguez, struggling to rise. She saw Marines still fighting, bleeding, standing when no one else would. She raised her rifle, teeth gritted, tears streaking her face. "No more hiding," she screamed and opened fire. Bolts tore into Grokanash's back. The alien snarled, staggering. He whirled, eyes burning with hate, charging at her. Rodriguez saw it and forced himself to his feet, chest burning with agony. Kelthara down. Above, the sky burns. In orbit, Admiral Morrison watched the Korech fleet maneuver for bombardment. "They're going to wipe the city," Parker said grimly. Morrison's face hardened. "Then we burn them first. All ships concentrate fire on their bombardment platforms." The void lit up as human cannons fired in perfect unison. Missiles streaked like falling stars. Korech cruisers exploded in brilliant flashes, debris raining into the atmosphere. The shelter below shook from the distant thunder of dying ships. The duel continues. Grokanash lunged at Kelthara. She dove aside, barely dodging claws that could cut steel. Rodriguez leapt onto the alien's back, jamming a combat knife into the gap in his armor. Grokanash roared, thrashing violently, slamming Rodriguez into a wall. Pain ripped through him, but he held on, driving the blade deeper. Kelthara scrambled for her rifle. Johnson laid down heavy fire, driving back other hunters trying to join. Chen tossed her last grenade, buying seconds. Rodriguez's knife broke. Grokanash ripped him off his back, throwing him to the ground. The alien raised his claw for the killing strike. Kelthara screamed and fired. The plasma bolt tore through Grokanash's faceplate, searing across his eye. The alien howled, stumbling. Rodriguez forced himself up, blood dripping down his chin. He grabbed his sidearm, pressed it against Grokanash's chest, and pulled the trigger until the magazine clicked empty. The Korech war leader staggered. His massive frame collapsed to the ground, claws twitching, then stilled. The battlefield fell silent. The aftermath of the duel. The remaining Korech hunters froze, their leader slain. Marines pressed the advantage, gunning them down or driving them into retreat. The line broke. Inside the shelter, Zelani heard the roar of battle fade. Then over the speakers, a human voice crackled through. "This is Sergeant Rodriguez. Shelter secure. Repeat, shelter secure." A cheer erupted, echoing through the underground halls. Thousands wept in relief. Children clutched their parents. Kelthara dropped to her knees, rifle falling from her hands. She was shaking, her chest heaving, but her eyes blazed with something new. Resolve. Rodriguez knelt beside her, battered, bleeding but alive. He met her gaze. "You did it." She shook her head, tears streaming. "We did it." Council shock. Council observers transmitted frantic updates. Human forces have killed Korech war leader Grokanash. Ground resistance crumbling. Shelters secured, casualties far lower than projected. Admiral Thren slumped in his chair. "They've done the impossible." Zexelin whispered, "No, they've done the human thing." But not over. On the Korech flagship, chaos reigned. Commanders screamed, hunters panicked. Grokanash was dead. their forces were fracturing. Yet one officer hissed, "We still have the orbital strike platforms. We can scorch the planet." The Korach commander bared his teeth. "Do it. If we cannot have this prey, no one will." Missile silos opened, planet killer warheads armed. The Korach warheads armed with a terrible hum, energy crackling across their launch bays. One strike and Sarah Prime would become a burning grave for millions of survivors. On the Retribution, Admiral Morrison's voice was cold steel. "Signal the fleet, target every launch bay, fire on my mark." Her crew looked at her, fear in their eyes. The odds were impossible, but humanity had never cared for odds. "Mark." The battle in the heavens. The void lit up. Dozens of Terran warships fired in perfect unison, their guns roaring like thunder. Rail slugs streaked across space, carving through the Korach formation. Plasma lances burned holes in enemy hulls. Missiles exploded in blossoms of fire. The first enemy launch bay erupted, warheads detonating inside their own ships. The shockwave tore through 5 Korach vessels. But the rest kept firing. "Multiple missiles away," Parker shouted. "They'll hit atmosphere in 90 seconds." Morrison's jaw tightened. "Valkyrie, intercept them." On the battered dreadnought, Captain Walsh grinned through bloodied lips. "With pleasure." The Valkyrie surged forward, engines screaming, weaving through the debris field. Her cannons fired relentlessly, picking off missiles one by one. Marines cheered from their stations, their voices ragged but fierce. The ship shook as debris tore across her hull, but the missiles kept exploding in blossoms of flame. Still, too many slipped through. "Admiral," Walsh's voice crackled, "we'll never get them all." Morrison's eyes narrowed. "Then we change the game." The sacrifice. The Terran destroyer Horizon's dawn broke formation, engines burning at full. On her bridge, Captain Elise Tan saluted, a quiet smile on her lips. "To live in interesting times," she whispered. The dawn rammed straight into the missile swarm. The ship disappeared in a flash of white light. The explosion triggered a chain reaction, detonating half the warheads in a blinding cascade. On Sarah Prime, survivors looked up and saw the sky turn to fire, not the fire of destruction, but of salvation. Rodriguez whispered, "Somebody just saved us all." The end of the fleet. With the missiles destroyed, the 7th Fleet pressed the attack. Human gunners tore through Korach ships with merciless precision. The enemy, leaderless and panicked, broke formation. Admiral Morrison's voice cut through the chaos. "Korach Fleet, this is your final warning. Withdraw or be annihilated." The last Korach commander snarled across comms. "We are predators, we will never." His words ended in static, as the Retribution's main gun reduced his ship to dust. One by one, the surviving Korach vessels fled into hyperspace, their retreat disorderly, their pride shattered. The battle for Sarah Prime was over. The silence after. The void fell quiet, only wreckage drifting. On the ground, the roar of battle faded into stunned silence. The Zelani emerged from their shelters, blinking at the broken sky. Kelthara stood beside Rodriguez, bloodied rifle still in her hands. She looked at the Marines, at the rescued children clutching human medics, at the wreckage of an empire. She whispered, "We live because you came." Rodriguez gave her a weary smile, "Because you called." Council reckoning. Weeks later, in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, representatives of 47 species gathered. The chamber was thick with whispers, antennae twitching, frills rippling, eyes blinking in disbelief. At the center stood Admiral Morrison, flanked by Marines and medics who had fought on Sarah Prime. Beside them stood Ambassador Vexara, her people alive, though scarred. A Threnody diplomat read aloud the Council's declaration. The Galactic Council recognizes the unprecedented actions of humanity at Sarah Prime. In 2 weeks, they evacuated 847 million civilians, destroyed an invasion fleet, and neutralized the Korach threat. This represents a new model for humanitarian intervention. The chamber erupted in argument. Unacceptable, they rewrote the rules. They combined relief with war. It is madness. They saved an entire people. Admiral Morrison waited until the noise died. Then she stepped forward. Morrison's speech. "Representatives of the Council," she began, her voice calm but carrying to every corner of the chamber. "You asked why we came. You asked why a relief ship carried Marines and guns. You asked why humans risked their lives for strangers. She paused, scanning the assembly. On Earth, we believe the most humanitarian thing you can do is remove the cause of suffering. We didn't come to Sarah Prime to wage war. We came to end one. We didn't come to conquer. We came to give a people back their future. She gestured to the Zelani survivors seated in the chamber, children with wide eyes who had lived through hell. These are not strangers. They are people, people who needed help, and we had the power to help. Her voice grew harder. The Korach called themselves predators. They hunted the weak and called it sport. We call that a disease. And when humans face a disease, we don't negotiate with it. We don't debate with it. We cure it. The chamber fell utterly silent. After the speech, Ambassador Vexara stepped forward, her eyes wet. My people live because of the humans. My children live because of them. We owe them a debt no words can repay. But they refuse payment. They simply did what needed to be done. That is who they are. Even the harshest council critics could not speak against her. A new beginning. Back on Sarah Prime, Marines helped rebuild shattered cities. Engineers purified water, doctors ran clinics, children played again under human protection. Rodriguez limped through the ruins, ribs still sore, but he smiled as Zelani children tugged at his sleeve. Kelthara walked beside him, no longer trembling. She had traded fear for determination. She carried her rifle not as prey pretending to fight, but as a protector of her people. You changed me, she said softly. Rodriguez shook his head. You changed yourself, we just showed you how. She looked at him with quiet respect. Then maybe humans weren't here just to save us. Maybe you were here to teach us how to save ourselves. Rodriguez smiled, maybe both. In the months that followed, the phrase humanitarian aid took on a new meaning across the galaxy. Where once it meant food and medicine, now it also meant guns and armor, medics who fought while bandaging wounds, fleets that healed by burning away the disease. Species whispered in awe and in fear. When humans answered a call, they didn't come to watch. They didn't come to plead. They came to fix the problem permanently.